You're gonna be really, really hot.
Get Caroline to do it. She's just so good.
Maybe I should. I asked my sister to. We're recording now.
Oh, nice.
I asked.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We never say our names, should we?
No.
I'm gonna say mine, so it's up to you guys. Felipe is my name.
I'm Sam.
I'm Sarah.
Okay,
I'm
great.
Sarah. If you didn't get it, yeah.
Yeah, I asked my sister if she would, because cat's out of the bag, whatever. I'm home with my parents. Fuck it.
I'm in Vermont. I admit it.
Yeah.
But only the last couple days.
I'm right here in New York City,
Damn.
Well, I
volunteering every day for Jabari.
I want to say that I'm only here temporarily. I took the. Oh wait, shit. The video is there. I'm only here temporarily. I took the COVID test right before coming. I didn't get the results, but I think I did due diligence to make sure it was safe.
Why didn't you get the results, Felipe?
Holy moly. Don't even get me started on this one. They lost my results. I got it a week ago. They lost my results. So I went and I got it again. I go up to the front and I wanted to ask the woman up front, hey, if I got blood taken last week, is it dangerous if I do it again? Will I pass out or
not have enough blood left?
Not have enough blood left, exactly. Will I leave here a husk with no essence? And then as soon as I said I got them last week, she said, you got them last week? Your insurance is not going to pay for this. And I was like, I was about to go beast mode because I was like, the lab lost my results. I'm not about to shoulder the cost of them. And then she
Take
said
on $7,000 in debt.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah, watch a second COVID test cost like $1,000.
Wow. It's like that movie Brasilia, like a comedy of bureaucracy.
Yes, you have
living in
100-item long itemized bill of things they're charging you
Yeah,
for.
It's like go to window 5, and then at window 5 they say go to window 7, and then at window 7 they say go to window 5. Here I am stuck in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that happened, listeners. That's funny that happened to Felipe because he's been the most scared of the coronavirus of anyone that I know, I think. And just for him to not be able to get his results was bitter and sad in a way I didn't anticipate.
No, absolutely. And I'm like the biggest pussy in the world. So getting the nose swab was unbearable pain. And having to get it again, extremely scary.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. My full disclosure. I'm in Vermont. I've been here for maybe 4 days. I'll come back in another 2 days. I got my coronavirus test right before I came. And Peter, my best friend and roommate, had to really pressure me, bully me, even it rose to that level, I felt, into doing it because I was not going to do it. I was like, if you get your test, then that's just for both of us. Because I really don't like going to the doctor. I feel like you're not sick until the doctor tells you you are. So it's actually the doctors that make people sick, and that if you don't go, you're not.
As Foucault said.
Yeah, exactly. I was really scared of the nasal scrape, and I was also scared of the blood part, because that's standard. And I went, and I decided to go because we were going to go on this trip, and I was like, once I get out of here, I'm going to post to Instagram and I'm going to share my story so I can help other scared people, handle their fear. And my experience was so easy and didn't hurt at all, wasn't even uncomfortable, that then I was embarrassed to even post about it.
I'm convinced that they didn't do it proper. I think it's no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
And if they don't really make your sinus hurt, then they didn't get the good cells.
Yeah. I had been told that what's crazy about it is you don't realize how long your nasal cavity is and it just keeps going up and up and up. To me, it was exactly how long I thought my nose was.
It's like a mummification process where they pull your brain out of your nose.
And they put a scarab up in there.
Totally.
Yeah, a blue scarab.
Totally. Yeah. And, unlike Felipe and Sarah, I actually relished going to the doctors and the pain of getting a COVID test because there's few moments in the modern world for me to flex my traditional masculine performance. So anytime I can take part in a moment of pain and overcome it, I look forward to.
No, man, it's not worth it.
Your doctors always tell the healthiest man they've ever seen in their
actually
career.
the nurse who took my my heart rate was like, wow, really good heart rate. And
they told me I had a bad heart rate. They were like, your heart rate's kind of high and you're sitting down, it shouldn't be that high. She's like, don't worry, your heart rate's like
Damn.
within the normal range, but it's quite high.
Damn.
And we just took your roommate's heart rate, and it's really good. So shape up
That's
a little
funny.
bit.
By the way, I was also looking
usually-
at his penis, and I might want to do something about that too.
When I go into the doctor's office and the doctor first comes in, I usually just tell them up front, I'm very scared. Just so you know, I'm really scared. But this time I actually held back on doing it, and I was glad that I did because, again, I
nice.
wasn't embarrassed. Yeah.
I tried the same.
Felipe does that, but he says he's angry. I'm very angry.
I told the nurse, I guess, who did the swab. I was trying to calm myself down, and so I was like, "Have you had it done before?" And she was like, "No, I haven't."
Oh.
And I was like, "Fuck, okay. I can't." I just wanted her to be like, "You'll be fine," and she couldn't even say that.
How could the nurse not have gotten tested? That
That's
seems
crazy.
like a total breach of protocol.
She didn't get it.
You're like, what books are you reading in school right now? Trying to keep her mind off of it, how they do with you.
Yeah. Oh man, but anyways, I'm here in Connecticut, just chilling, and it's good. I've been playing guitar nonstop. I can't stop playing the guitar.
That's cool. I can't wait to see you play the guitar in real life.
I'm not getting any better though.
Oh,
I can't wait to see you play a protest song at a rally, Felipe.
yeah.
Whose side are you on? Whose side
Yeah,
are you on?
Pete Seeger style.
Yeah. I'm coming back on Tuesday. I'm going to go to that the one at City Hall, the Occupy City Hall. I wonder if is a sit-in. I don't know what Occupy, what that word doesn't really mean anything anymore, I guess. All these words are just like things people put on a poster.
I
You
mean,
guys want to go to that?
when on Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday at 5. Me and Will are going to go.
Oh, I'm here till Wednesday.
Is it Brooklyn City Hall?
At the Brooklyn City Hall. I do believe. I'll have to look.
Yeah, I'll go to that with you
Nice.
guys.
Can you
Cool.
guys FaceTime me in while I'm here?
Yes. Except that I'm afraid of getting stingrayed, so my phone will be off, but
Oh,
you
originally when we were first going to protests, I was like taking all of the precautions, and I thought we had to be like, like Hong Kong level.
yes.
But then over time, I was like,
I can go on Tinder.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like I was in less danger than I initially thought I would be in.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the strange thing about the entire emotional landscape of like the Black Lives Matter uprising is like a feeling of real fear that existed because actual scary things are happening, then a feeling of like, oh, things have been neutralized. Actually, it's protesting is no big deal. It's like something children and families do. And then a feeling of conspiratorial suspicion that like the fact that the protests changed in their mood was like some kind of psyop type thing. Yeah, so it's kind of an endless... what feels significant one day, the next day is like, oh, that was ridiculous that I was worried about that or something.
Totally. Yeah, I went on a social distance bike ride yesterday with my friend, and I was talking with her. Like, we were biking through Williamsburg, and there was like people getting ice cream. Like there was like a really fancy ice cream store, and people were just getting ice cream there, and it was this really bizarre moment where it was like, yeah, the sort of truth about the banality of like an apocalyptic moment. Like, you could imagine like there being some sort of awful like genocide happening in the United States, and there would still be like rooftop bars and people getting ice cream and stuff like that,
Of course.
Yeah, man.
It's like that Claire Denis movie that we went to see. What was it called? This is like the dawn of me and Sam's friendship. We saw White Material.
White Material. Yeah.
That whole movie, my understanding of what that was about was like a revolution is starting or civil war, and the entire time everyone's like, is it about to start or like already started?
Oh, interesting. What is this movie? Is it good? That's an interesting concept.
It's really good.
It was good. I mean, it's very sort of slow, and the entire time you're like, is something going on that I don't know what's going on? But I think that is related to what I just said.
Yeah, and she's like trying to like save her like father's coffee farm, and like all the workers keep like being like, no, we're not going to work. We have to like leave the country. And she's like, and her dad is like this sort of like rich, like each of them live in like these separate, huge, massive like compounds on this coffee farm, like the white father and the white brother, and it's like really bizarre and like kind of like the Wild West. Yeah.
It was good.
Have you guys ever seen that movie Waltz with Bashir?
Yeah, I saw it when I was younger, but I don't think I understood a single thing that was happening in it.
It's about these massacres that happened in the Second Lebanon War that like Israel sort of kind of carried out, but also kind of like let this Christian minority carry out on Lebanese like civilians. And it's about sort of this man who's caught up in that war as an Israeli soldier and his sort of like the ways in which he's complicit in this massacre. But like also what it's really about is like how kind of boring and unclear and banal war is. And then it's like punctuated with these moments of really, really intense, awful horribleness. But then most of the time you're like really, really bored and not sure what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true that there's like a gap between the feeling that something is happening and also that nothing is happening. I don't know if other people relate to that. I think that there's a lot of people that don't feel like nothing is happening, but I think there are certainly moments when it feels like nothing is happening. I mean, even with coronavirus in the first place, like you're like, oh, okay, pandemic, like the whole world is whatever, and then you're out in the park and then you see people out and you think, oh, they're just kind of out, they're hanging out.
Yeah.
People are doing, no one's scared, or I mean, obviously people are scared, but they push it deep inside. Or they don't show it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this as the coronavirus was starting. I was like, oh, it's the government's prerogative right now to cultivate intense enough atmosphere of fear that people will respond to their directives without them having to be forceful, but not to cultivate so much fear that there's a full societal panic and like casualties from that. And they must have known, or who knows what the government actually knows, but it's kind of a fact of the matter that like, and I saw people saying this on Twitter, that if this all works, we'll feel like we were being ridiculous a couple of weeks ago, but because things will be fine.
Well, the truth though is sort of weirder, which is that like, I think that deaths from this can go really high, and you can still kind of carry out your life without it necessarily affecting you. I mean, I might eat my words, maybe in like 2 months it'll be like, oh no, like someone in my family or whatever. But it's like deaths are high, super high. And I still like, I only know sort of friends of friends, you know what I mean? Sort of like 2 degrees separated from me who like have had it. And yet it's like I'm hearing, so I guess there's just a lot of people in this country. But that's just to say that that I think they figured out it can be really bad and still people won't be that scared.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah. And then it's also hard for people to evaluate what they are even scared of. Like, I think maybe it doesn't, maybe some people don't care if 100,000 people die because that metric is difficult for them to understand. And like how many people die every day? How many people die in car accidents? This kind of reasoning and math. My grandpa is a big proponent of calculating how many people die of malaria, and so saying that coronavirus doesn't matter, that kind of thing, where I'm like, it's an interesting existential argument of like how you decide what
well, it's funny. It's funny how there was kind of this like liberal line that was like, this is 10 9/11s a day. Like based on the number of deaths, where it's like we're going through 10 or whatever. Yes. Like it's one 9/11 a day. It's like, well, the key difference is that 9/11 was done by Arab people. Like obviously that's not the thing that they're concerned about, and that Americans are concerned about with 9/11.
Totally. Well, I'm sure people have done this before, but I was just going to like make an analogy to the War on Terror, where it was like the whole War on Terror was sold on like stirring up fear in Americans, like about terrorism within our borders. And that's kind of fascinating that it's like really, it was so much easier as a project to make people afraid that they were going to get like attacked in a public place than it is to make them afraid that they're going to get like a communicable disease.
Yes.
I'm sure that if the government wanted to stir up fear, they would, except that the difference is that the government has an incentive to, carry out perpetual war. I don't think they have much of an incentive to carry out like big public health projects.
Do you think they have an incentive to carry out this mass fireworks?
You think it's an op?
Nightly campaign.
You think the fireworks are an op?
Yeah. It sounds so reasonable to me that it would be. Like, I hear that and I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like, I've only lived in New York for 2 years, so I don't have that much evidence for comparing it. But I've never heard anything like this in my life.
Hold on. So what's the angle? Like, the government is trying to what? Like, desensitize
prevent you from sleeping.
Yeah.
It's a few different things. It's like, basically, first that the police are leaving fireworks around in neighborhoods, like people allege that they do with the bricks at protests to get people to throw bricks. Now they're leaving out fireworks to get kids to set fireworks off all night long. And they're like fireworks beyond. They're not just like Roman candles. They're like Macy's Day Parade level, or whoever does the 4th of July fireworks show level of fireworks.
But to what end?
They're having to disturb people so that they can't sleep, because they're going off from like 8 p.m. to like 5 a.m. and to just sort of like unnerve these neighborhoods and also like trigger people's PTSD. Some people have said it's to get people used to the sounds of like artillery, so that when like the militarized police are coming and killing all of us, we won't really register the sounds. That to me is a little crazy.
Could you imagine being like a 15-year-old and walking around Brooklyn with your two best friends, and you turn a street corner, and sitting in the corner is an inflatable giant Santa Claus from the Macy's Day Parade. And you and your friends quickly blow it up and start marching down Fulton.
That's funny. The other piece of evidence is
like you're walking down the street and there's a scarecrow, or like a doll of a witch that looks like it's flown right into a tree, and your friends start setting it up around the city, and it starts making everybody too scared to go to protests. Precisely.
Yeah. You get a little bucket and it's filled with vampire teeth. And you and your friends put the vampire teeth
and it activates your PTSD, and then you stop petitioning the government.
What were you going to say, Sarah?
That the police aren't responding to 911 calls that are related to fireworks. That's the other evidence.
Hold on, though, dude.
And they're also not responding to 311 calls.
Hold the phone, though.
The calls were at 200 last year at this time, and now they're at 1,000. Okay, that's it.
How do you know that's true? Because Sam told me a story where he saw a cop answering a call for fireworks. Do you want to tell the story, Sam, or what?
Yeah, it was.
The fuck's going on?
Well, I don't have the numbers that Sarah has. So
I'll put it to you, Sarah. How do you have the numbers that you have? Who has those numbers? Who knows how many calls the cops are responding to?
If only we had a producer that could be looking up this.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know, brother. How do I know anything I know? I can't. I don't have no idea. It's in my head, dude.
Sure.
Numbers are in my head.
Take it as fact. The cops are not answering 911 calls, period. I'm going one step further. They're not answering them at all.
They're not answering. They've hung up. I think it's plausible that the police want people to think that we need them, so they are willing to let this like barrage of fireworks situation go on unchecked, and they're like stoking it.
The only people that this is going to rile up are the people that would have been calling the cops anyways, because it's like, for me, I know I'm not supposed to call the cops on neighbors, and it's like, I hear it at night, it wakes me up, but I'm not about to call the cops. But if you're like already like a jumpy 36-year-old opinion writer for the New York Times who lives in Fort Greene. Oh no, we really do need the police. Forget to fund the police. I can't sleep. But like that doesn't affect me or Sam or you, right?
No, it doesn't affect me. I go to bed at 5 p.m. and I wake up in time for the last 2 hours of the show. I wake up at 3 a.m. and I go up my roof and watch them.
Like, damn. I was really moved by the Black Lives Matter movement and its most radical demands, but after not being able to sleep during a summer where I didn't have a job all summer, I suddenly realized that we do need the biggest carceral state in the whole entire world. You were going to say something, Sam.
You were going to tell your story.
There's these men who are like our age, all hanging out on this stoop, and this was like in the early evening, and they're all hanging out, and then this police car like pulls up in front of them, and these two guys get out, and this policeman is like, so he gets out of the car, and the boys like immediately address him by name. They're like, "Oh, it's so and so," and they're like all laughing, and the policeman is like, he's looking at them, and he's like shaking his head, and he's like, "Guys, you're grown-ass men. Like, why are you setting off fireworks? We keep getting these calls." And they were all like laughing, and I think they were like the police were like the same age as the guys, and I think they might have been like grown up together or something like that.
When the cop asked the young men that, did they say?
What did you say?
It's just said that's your narrative, that you're adding that narrative line. That we don't know that
they were like talking to each other.
We haven't fact checked that.
They were talking to each other and referring to each other by name. So that's my guess.
Nicknames, childhood nicknames.
When the cop,
they were calling him Pig. They were calling the cops Pig and
Little Piggy.
Yeah.
Wow, these guys must be really good friends.
Those aren't sparklers, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy it. I mean, I think it seems a little.
Wait till you come back.
What?
And you hear it. Wait till you come back and you hear it.
What are you talking about? I've been there. Like, I've been hearing them.
Have you been hearing it?
They've been waking me up. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it is weird. Like, they're sort of setting them off all the time, all day long. But I just, of all the things that the police and the FBI could secretly be doing, I don't really see what the payoff is for this fireworks.
I think they're stupid. The police are stupid. They do dumbass shit all the time, and this is a great stupid plan. It's kind of funny, and it is sort of working. It's people are freaking out and are being conspiratorial.
Are they
turning on each other?
What I mean,
it's all over Twitter.
Is it? I'm like on Twitter a lot,
right?
But
you're the Twitter expert, dude. Yeah,
I'm on Twitter all the time, but the most I see people being is like, sorry. The most I see people saying is like, "Oh, I guess we have the same guy in every town." Like, that's the joke I've been seeing over and over. I'm not seeing anyone be like, I don't know, maybe not. I mean, I have seen people theorize about a conspiracy, but I'm not really seeing how the dots connect where it would make sense.
But doesn't it give you that conspiratorial feeling? You're like, something's going on, and then we're going to get to the bottom of this in 30 years.
Of all the things that give me a conspiratorial feeling about this moment, the fireworks is not one of them, but I'm quite conspiratorial about a lot of other things. Like, precisely the fact that the whole thing about organize, like, quote unquote, like, organizers who sort of coordinate with the police to make the protests more peaceful. I mean, I don't think it needs to be that secretive in order to take place, but I don't know, some of that, like those actors in Atlanta, you saw that stuff, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I buy that. That seems I'm straight up
and sold on that. Yeah,
seems totally. Do you want to explain it? Because I guess I don't know.
I heard it third hand, so someone else could explain it.
I mean, this is kind of old. I feel like I was listening to an episode of Raisin Man the other day, and I was like, "Oh, I feel like we should explain a little more what we're talking about sometimes."
My mom has told me that half the time she doesn't understand what we're talking about, but she kind of enjoys it.
And our parents are really kind of the make a listener.
Sure.
Yeah. But your mom will know about the Catherine Cohen stuff and all that when we get to it, I'm sure. No, there's no way she hasn't heard about that.
Yeah, of course, exactly. I wish you guys could see the robot video. There's a robot going through, there's a brick wall, and the wall has a hole that's shaped like a body, and the robot was making the shape of it and walking slowly through it.
That's pretty cool.
Did you guys see this video of that comedian Joey Diaz?
Oh yeah, horrific.
To Joe Rogan
about the blowjob thing.
Yeah,
I elected not to watch it, which is something I kind of generally do with a lot of this stuff. Is I don't need to watch what I already know and believe to be true, and like, why would I evoke that for myself? I mean, I try not to like be blind to things that go on in specific, but like, saw the video, I read the caption, and I was like, I'm sold. That is exactly what I think it is. But go ahead.
Well, there's this like conversation going on Twitter right now about like, oh, he's like Joey Diaz like isn't cancelable because like he's like he's like produced a fan base that is like okay with this kind of behavior and
explain it.
Yeah. He on this podcast, Seth Rogen.
All right, Miss Olsen, here it is.
Yes. All right, here you go, Kirsten Olsen. So this guy Joey Diaz, who's like a kind of old stand-up comedian, goes onto Joe Rogan's podcast, and there's a clip where he's joking about how like open micers who'd want to get time at some club that I guess he like ran or
which by the way like that just the fact that like you'd have to trade any favors or any influence in order to get on an open mic
it's humiliating.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like derail from like what's truly horrible about this, but it's like damn, like the club scene does suck my dick. Like what's that about? Just put your name in the bucket.
I don't think
put your name in the bucket. What's going on here?
I'm not sure it was an open mic, but he refers to them as like these open micers.
Maybe they're like those bringer shows or whatever.
Anyways, he's joking about like how there's this one particular woman who he'd make like give him a blowjob so that she could like get time on stage, and then Joe Rogan laughs and he's like, "How many women did you do this to?" And he was like, "Oh, 20," and they all have like a big laugh about it. So that's the video people are reacting to, and then like now there's this whole thing where like. Joey Diaz like hasn't apologized for it or anything. He's like, oh, like you guys, like all his tweets are like, oh, you cocksuckers, like if you didn't like this video, how about this video? And he's like posted this other interview he did where he like says some horrible shit, and people are like, oh, you can't cancel Joey Diaz because like his fan base is like one he created. It wasn't like given to him by like an industry or like a network, so to speak, so that like he's not like cancelable the way other people are.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to make the argument that he's not cancelable because
what he did was okay.
Because it's the opposite of like a Power Bottom situation, you know, where like Power Bottom got canceled literally overnight because like their fan base cares the most earnestly about that kind of transgression. The fan base of a person like this doesn't give a shit about that.
I think that is the point he's making.
No, but he's saying it has to do with like where your platform comes from, whether it's from a TV show network or like it's your own organically cultivated.
But I think ultimately, I mean, it is the same argument. I mean, I guess like who would be the other gatekeepers, like club owners? But the club owners defer to like, well, if an audience is going to come in for this, then why do I care? If I'm, you know, if I manage the funny laughs at Providence, Rhode Island, like I'm not, no one's going to protest outside. And if it brings in money, like why wouldn't I bring in Joey Diaz? I think it's the same argument, or they're related.
Sure, I think they're related.
Yeah, I think they are related. But I think I bring it up as an interesting case study in the string of cancellations that have happened recently. I don't know, as a way to begin talking about the cancellations. If that's a thing we want to do.
Yeah, well, you know what? Joey Diaz might not be able to get canceled by his audience, but he can't resist the justice that comes out of the barrel of a gun. So.
Whoa. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
No one can do that. If someone, no one can escape the justice that comes out of the barrel of a gun.
Yes, it's true.
We actually don't have any guests on the Raisin Man podcast because we don't know. Can't do the background checks necessary to clear.
It's true. Yeah, we don't have a producer like that yet. So.
And we don't platform anything we don't know for sure what it is. So.
Yeah, exactly. And in any case, Joey Diaz could never escape the justice that is born out of the barrel of a gun. Can you imagine if a clip of me saying that got me canceled with Joey Diaz fans?
That would be
That would
funny.
be funny. Yeah.
I'm imagining you saying that to the person behind the desk when you got your COVID test the second time, when you were irate and angry.
Listen, I'm not paying for this, and if the insurance company calls, you can tell them that I might pay with the currency that is born out of the barrel of a gun. No, I don't know. I wonder if Joey Diaz. I wonder if he could get canceled. Probably not.
I've never heard of him before. Had you heard of him?
Yeah, he did this like show, the Degenerates show, Felipe, that Netflix
so funny.
thing.
That's so. Oh my God, that show was like one of the kinds of things that make you want to write a little thesis paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
I'm getting a lot of silence. I'm getting a lot of silence. Am I not picking up on something?
I'm sorry. No.
No, it's just
Sarah,
hearing my
like
silence.
a thesis paper, Sarah.
Yeah,
Basically,
it's like
basically it's a Netflix stand-up series, and the premise, essentially, when you really strip it all down, the premise is like, this is a Netflix series that's not going to be PC. And so because of culture as it stands, they have to fashion the entire special around that idea. And so they call it the Degenerates. So the idea is like this: when you enter this special, you're going to see a different kind of thing. You're going to see moral degenerates. And the aesthetic is sort of like the classic. I think the thing it made me reflect on is that classic stand-up aesthetic, which is like, leather jackets, like, small town comedy clubs that have like touring comics. It takes place in Vegas. I don't know. I don't have anything more to say. It just sucks.
What's
it's
so
just
provocative about it? They just have their subject matter is fucked up?
Yeah, not like especially fucked up.
Yeah, we watched it, and it's honestly not that provocative. Like something that would be par for the course for like anything you'd see, honestly, at like a regular open mic. Like there's even Joey Diaz's set, I thought was relatively tame.
Yeah, I think it only goes to show how cucked Netflix is, that they need to sell it to you that way rather than just say 5 funny stand-ups.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But Netflix would never do anything that was truly provocative or like risk-taking. Or if they did, they would immediately have to apologize for it, potentially take it down.
Totally.
I mean, they did take something down, but didn't they put out the Chappelle special?
That's true.
Stuart Lee makes this I think something funny, apt comment where he's like, yeah, it's funny when I see these comedy shows that are like comedy on Tuesday nights, like comedians are unmuzzled tonight. Like on this night, they get to say exactly how they really feel about stuff. And he's like, shouldn't you just, like, when you're doing your comedy, like, you should just be saying how you feel all the time? And if you're not doing that, then like maybe that's a sign that you like shouldn't be doing comedy, or you should get different opinions. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I was once on a show with the woman who was talking about how like she was a cruise ship comedian, and she would do like a 9 o'clock show, and then she would do like an 11 o'clock show. And at the 9 o'clock show, she wasn't supposed to talk about lesbian sex, and at the 11 o'clock show she could talk about
lesbian snacks.
Sex.
I was like, I kind of want to hear that bit. What's that about?
Yeah, they eat the purple grapes. But I just
the lesbian grapes.
I was going to think about that. I don't know. I would never be a cruise ship comedian. That sounds whack as fuck. I've met several cruise ship comedians now, and it sounds like one of the more depressing turns your career can possibly take. Like, stable source of income, but like that sounds like hell.
Yeah, but also you get to hang out on a cruise ship.
Yeah, that's bulletproof, Felipe.
Yeah,
it's fun, brother. You know, two ways around. Nice sunny cruise ship.
Wake up every morning, different island. Different people.
Yeah, you go to the pool, you go to the wave pool, and you do your set about I don't know, people who can't eat gluten. That's what those stand-up comedians like to talk about.
Felipe will be like, every night he'll be like, what prop should I use? My little prop bag.
Yeah, maybe this isn't even interesting because it's just like annoying shit that people say who are misogynists on Twitter or whatever. But I was looking at the stuff that happened with Crystalia, which I can explain what that was if I have to, which is that Crystalia has been accused of 500 different incidents of grooming.
Wait, 500?
So yeah, I saw this on Twitter that like they haven't all been evaluated extensively, I think, as like credible accusations, but like whoever is on Twitter trying to collect the Whisper Network full accounts of like every time he's ever like perved on a teenage girl said it was more than 500.
Yo, somebody, you know, somebody was like late into the night just looking at their phone. You know, when you're like on one on your phone and you're just like messaging and texting and searching, like that was, I didn't know. I thought there were like, I thought there were like 7. I did not know there were that many.
So I saw 500. I should double check it, but I also remember seeing the number way earlier. Did you see that Neil Brennan, what he had tweeted about it?
Yeah.
He was what he was like, I believe in due process.
Yeah, and he said that he would give $1,000 to RAIN, which is a anti-rape and sexual violence organization, for every credible claim that this had happened. And it got up to like 35, I remember at some point, of like people who really had extensive accounts of like what had happened to them. So he deleted that tweet, which is so funny.
So he didn't even donate the money?
That's insane.
Unbelievably.
Damn, that guy.
I think he's probably reposted since then, but I didn't check. Yeah.
Oh, man, that.
Yeah.
Those texts, I read some of those texts, and they were hard to read. They were hard to read.
Yes, but be clear, because they were hard to read for the reason that they were cringy. Is that what you mean to say?
Oh yes. No, there wasn't like spelling errors.
No. I mean to say, because it's obviously like unethical the thing he was doing, but also you're like it was cringy as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I think they're kind of the same thing, I think I'm reacting to the same thing. Like that, it was like really like it gave me an upset. I mentioned only because Sarah brought up how she was like, oh, I don't need to see the evidence when people post it, and it was just a thing where like you know, like if you're like a man or something like that, you can hear people like talk about like grooming and stuff, like these concepts that you understand, but like could be pretty abstract if you've never experienced it firsthand, and just to like see the texts and stuff like is really it's really sickening, you know. Or like that recording of, I remember when the New Yorker released that recording of what's the fucking producer guy who Harvey Weinstein, like talking to that Italian model that she like had an FBI recording of it, and it was like awful. It was like awful to hear his voice and hear what he was saying and stuff. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like sometimes the evidence isn't. Well, you can argue about the importance of like showing the evidence online, but like just interacting with the evidence is like a really intense part of being part of these like canceling events.
Yeah, it's an interesting line to kind of walk, because on the one hand, once you start just sort of believing kind of abstract allegations and claims without doing any kind of personal due diligence to looking at them, you're kind of like losing touch with reality and like what you're actually talking about. You should care enough to like really specifically know what you're talking about these things. But on the other hand, I don't need to read all the messages that Crystalia sent to these people. Yeah. So it's fucked up. So it's kind of up and down. Like, I'm not watching the Jeffrey Epstein documentary. I didn't watch the R. Kelly one. I didn't watch the Michael Jackson one. I did watch the Michael Jordan one. I thought that one was good.
But he wasn't getting canceled in that one.
No. No.
And I did watch Up, that Disney movie.
And I watched Up. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. The Jeffrey Epstein one I might actually watch, because I'm like, I don't think I'm actually familiar with the contours of like how the power systems actually allow someone to be a super predator pedophile at that level. So maybe I should watch it just to grasp like what is going on. But I don't know. What I was going to say about the Crystalia thing and the replies originally kind of goes to what you're saying, Sam, of like this random person. I was just reading the replies on someone's tweet about this stuff, and some annoying guy said, it's crazy to me how women want you to think they're strong and independent but then they can't just block or ignore some like weird tweets from some guy. Like, you can't have it both ways, ladies, or like something like that.
Yeah. You
and
can't
it
have
just
the
made me,
chivalrous.
like-
You can't have the chivalrous man and also have power. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it just made me think about to live in a stupid mind like that, what that must be like, and like what a sad life that is. And to think of like these comedians on the Degenerates Hour, or the people who are like, oh, I'm really gonna unleash my true thoughts about what the world is like, and then when they do, it's just like this boring, flat, totally unnuanced, totally unrigorous takedown of shit that they haven't thought about, you know, in any kind of interesting way. And you're just like, damn, this is your work, this is your art. I mean, that's a reply to a tweet, but when you see someone doing stand-up that's as like two-dimensional as that, you're like, wow, you have to practice this for a really long time to get where you're at, and this is like what you wanted to say. It's not even intellectually like of any interest, not even clever.
I'm remembering what Joey Diaz stand-up is in The Degenerates, actually. Oh my god, what is it? He does a joke where he says something like, Louis fucked it up for all of us, where he's like, who hasn't shown their dick to someone? That's the joke. So that just, no comment. That's all, you know? That's the joke. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, what's up?
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, to be honest, I don't really have anything sort of like new to say about it. I mean, it's bad stuff. Some they should face consequences, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it seems kind of clear cut, or like, I don't know.
Well, I listened to the Red Scare podcast they had about grooming, and they're like, I don't know if I want to summarize everything they say, but they're very...
What if we just play their podcast on Raisin Man? Okay, let me just put it up, and then we can do comments to it. We can listen to it and just comment it.
And then we jump in and we're like, that's wrong.
Bro, do you think that the Red Scare girls would come on Raisin Man?
Definitely. For sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Did you guys watch Caroline Calloway on Z-Ways?
Oh God, Jesus Christ. Okay. That, I could not handle that. Talk about evidence that you can't deal with. That was too intense.
That was crazy.
That was too intense.
Yeah. But also kind of a marvel to see someone with such an open mind, in the kind of really classic sense. Like, there's no filter between their mind and their mouth.
Well, we were going
through their head.
Because I think Sam was like, oh, you're seeing what you're seeing. So Caroline Calloway just says like the weirdest, cringiest, most insane, like,
she's trying to be like, white people should be more open about how they're racist. I'm willing to admit that I'm a racist in these ways, and it's just like totally is unhinged.
Yeah, like, even I mean, what you said just there, Sarah, is like normal, right? But it's like there's something about the tone and the kind of velocity and the feeling of Caroline Calloway developing that idea that's absolutely insane and unbearable.
You got to see it firsthand.
You got to see it to believe it. But Sam was like, oh. That's like the people, because Sam was like, oh, she kind of knows what she's doing. She's like, you know, she knows she's like hitting a nerve. And I was thinking about someone like Trump, and you know how people say like, oh, like Trump knows what he's doing. Like, he knows that. But I think I was just thinking, it's not that those people know what they're doing in the way that me, you, or Sam would know what we're doing. It's not that they're like normal in their brains and then they think, I'm going to be crazy and that's how I'm going to manipulate the public. Rather, they are like kind of crazy, and there's a tiny normal part in their brain that's like, oh yeah, this is crazy, but I'm going to like channel it. I'm going to like ride the stallion. And that's what you see with Caroline Calloway. Like, I think she genuinely thinks that what she's saying is like kind of normal, but she knows it's kind of spicy,
but in a way she doesn't exactly understand. Like,
totally, she doesn't have the full
outline.
Picture, but she's like she's sort of tai chiing the energy. She's water bending this manic energy in a kind of chaotic way, but it produces this incredible fireworks display.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think you're sort of describing it, but like the way I felt was, it's like someone like talking to someone at a bar, and they start talking, and then they get like kind of infatuated with their own voice, and then they start like, they're like, oh yeah, and you know, like I believe this one crazy thing, and that makes me think about like welfare queens or something like that, and then they start spewing these like horrible opinions, but they're like still high off of their own sort of like their own like manic talking energy, and all you have to do is just to like step back, and they just like start taking up more and more space and saying crazier and crazier and crazier things.
Well, that's what I thought was funny, because people were like, wow, Ziwe, like, you're incredible, like, you're really doing a public service. And I think that that's true, but it's also remarkable how little Ziwe actually needs to do in order to extract the incredible content. She just needs to ask a question, and then Caroline Calloway just give her a context, and simply have a neutral face while Caroline Calloway is saying insane things. And that alone, I was going to say, it's not even the insane opinions that make me cringe. There's one particular moment where I like had to turn it off, where Ziwe's like, oh, so Caroline, should we just play it? Like, maybe I should just play it. Just keep talking.
Yes.
I'll just find it and play it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, and I don't know. It's interesting because Ziwe doesn't have to do that much work that you see her doing like live, but it seems like the choices that she makes of being sort of like totally unshaken the entire time, just like interviewing her as if they're just like chatting and having this conversation, like, is brilliant. It's just like works really well.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh man, I'm kind of scared to play it because I'm gonna have to like deal with it.
And you're gonna react viscerally to it when you hear it, or you mean like on audio?
Wait, I'm trying to find the correct one. Let me see if I can find it.
Is it really hot where you guys are? It's hot as hell.
It's really hot.
Yeah.
I've turned off the air conditioner for the sound purposes, and now I'm sweating, and I'm drinking hot.
I'm sweating over here. That's a fact of the matter. But other things we could talk about while we wait for Felipe.
You know, I might not find the correct clip. I'll just play one random clip. You should just I guess. Probably whoever listens to us already follows Ziwe and can listen to it. But I'll just play a clip, and then I'll just if it happens to be the one, it'll be the one, and if not,
this is for you, Kirsten Olsen.
Let's see.
I don't get that joke that you guys are doing, but you can.
That's
Sam's
my
mom's name.
Oh, I see.
What were you doing for the first 25 years of your
I'm
life?
playing it. Oh, I wish you guys could hear it. Let me see if I can make you hear it.
Make me hear it.
I don't know if I can make you hear it. Fuck.
Make me enjoy it.
I'm trying to think how I could make you hear it. Could I play it through the Zoom? Could I play it through the Zoom?
Sarah, do you ever find yourself in those situations where you're sort of saying too much and suddenly start saying opinions that you don't really believe?
I think it diminishes as I get older. I hope it continues to. But definitely when I'm younger. And it's funny, it's something that I've appreciated about like my documentary film job, which I've never talked about on the podcast before, interviewing really smart people like professors about their absolute like area of expertise that they know backwards and forwards. How frequently they will give an answer and then be like, wait, don't use that. I misstated and misrepresented the certain nature of something. And then they say it again the correct way. And I'm like, relationship between verbal expression and things you think, feel, and believe is a gulf. Language is insufficient. Talking is a function of a social interaction that is not you expressing, one-to-one anything, much less what you fundamentally believe.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Can you make it so that I can?
Oh. Well, I'll try.
Damn, I kind of skipped a beat here, and now it's like we're not at the Caroline Calloway thing, but I feel like I should just do it.
Pay it off, man. I made it so that multiple people, Can
you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, the video can't see it, but whatever. I'll just play it.
2018. What were you doing for the first 25 years of your life?
I didn't say I discovered it like
you can't hear
Christopher Columbus.
Just too quiet.
I want to kill myself.
Forget it.
Forget it. I'm gonna kill myself. Can
we scroll to some of my tweets?
Huh?
Can we scroll to some of my tweets?
Yeah, maybe. Hold on. Fuck. Now I can't even. Now I.
No, you can't even stop.
Screen sharing, and then I'm going to. You guys keep talking. This was horrific. This was the worst decision I could have ever made.
Was this is that an attractive thing that the professor does that? They like take back what they say and then
take back what they say. It doesn't attract me. Okay. I'm not sure what joke you're making.
No, I'm not making a joke. You were saying that you were like, oh, it's nice.
It makes me feel like it's not a symptom of me being an idiot. It's just a symptomatic of a phenomenon of what talking is like. That even the most.
I'm not saying you're an idiot.
And I'm now just responding to what you were asking. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. I guess what I took into what you're saying is that like, oh, you like in your in this experience when you're interviewing people that like even a person who was very intelligent about a specific subject would get what they were saying wrong. It's like,
yes.
So I'm saying, I guess the bridge I'm making is like, oh, that's a kind of admirable quality that even as an expert, you could kind of take back what you say.
I don't think they do it because they're being admirable. They don't want to look like an idiot by having said the wrong thing. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Got it.
I missed a whole beat on this conversation. You guys are talking about when people don't know what they're talking about.
When you say things that you don't mean and you're just like, shit, now I'm going to say, wait, I don't mean that, but I just said it. And like,
yeah,
in our society, that means you mean it when you say it. So
yeah, it's true that when you say something, it means that you mean it.
Well, it's all we have to know.
Well, maybe that's a nice like.
You write it down.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's like an interesting tie back to sort of the stand-up comedian.
Yeah, tie
or like
back.
The Joey Diaz
tie
thing.
Back, brother.
Okay, here it goes. Well, this is something that Nick Mullins said, but he was like, oh, when you're like a comedian, Nick Mullins is a comedian. He's like, when you do talk radio, you have to talk like for 5 hours professionally every day that you will just end up saying stuff you don't believe and like terrible things. And he's like giving people an out, but like there is a quality because I listened to like Joey Diaz's stand up and I listened to him like talking on that other show that he posted the link to, and there is a quality of him talking where I'm like, oh, you're just saying whatever is like coming off of the top of your head, and you're trying to be as like brazen as possible and say the most insane thing.
Do you think that he didn't get a blowjob from 20 women to do an open mic?
No, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but he's like a shock jock comedian, and his type of humor is like saying the most like ribald and baudy things.
Most extreme, most cartoonish, like clearest version of.
Sure, but then you have these two opposing models for what's happening there, right? So on one hand is what you're saying, which is the more you talk, the more you have to generate and invent things, right? And then the opposite model is the more you talk, the more you sort of chisel away at your outside and you give your true opinions. Because ultimately, I think that if you don't believe, I don't know actually about this. I don't
believe that second model. Yeah.
You don't believe in it? Because
the second model that you can keep talking and then you arrive at the truth. No,
your truth. You arrive at your truth.
No, I don't think talking has anything to do with arriving anywhere. Talking is.
Let me ask you this though, because when people like, I'll try this out. Maybe I don't agree with it, but when the Louis thing happened, everyone was like, he told us who he was in his stand-up, and a part of me felt like, oh, he's like in this scene where it's rewarded to say these kinds of things, like simply talking about his stand-up, like it's rewarded to whatever. Talk about how you are like a gross pervert, and so a part of me was like, I don't necessarily know if he was saying anything that was true about him. But then when you sit with it for a little longer, you're like, no, but yes, it does come from a place of truth, because it's again like the more you talk, the more you do stand up. To give an example here, sure, you could imagine the more you invent things, but I actually think it kind of goes the other way. People who are new at stand-up make shit up that's not true to their experience. But the more you do stand-up, what's that little beeping sound? Oh, it's gone. Toaster. But I think that as people get better at doing stand-up, they're actually better able to articulate things that are true. I don't know. I'm kind of riffing here. I think with Joey Diaz, it's like he probably did do that shit, and I don't know if that applies, but I think that when Nick Mullins, it's a funny joke he makes, but he's talking about like that Anthony Cumia from Opie and Anthony or something, and it's like that guy does have racist beliefs. It's not that like he's like, oh, I run out of stuff to say. And I think it's a funny premise. I think it's a funny premise on Nick Mullins' part. So I don't need to analyze it to make it unfunny, but at the same time, it's like, no, you say the things that you mean over time. I think. Am I wrong?
Yeah,
about
well,
this?
It's funny. No, I'm not sure that it really does work on either track. Like just the sound of that, again, I haven't really thought about it in these terms exactly before, but that doesn't really resonate with me in any way. I feel like I can easily go both ways. I can talk forever and then end up saying lies, or talk a long time and then say something true. Like, I don't see why it would really function like that. And how people do their art in their comedy career. I mean, I can imagine someone starting out telling things that are true about themselves and people not laughing at them, and then being like, okay, I guess I'll just make up stuff then. I don't see necessarily, like, neither feels like it summarizes reality for me in any way. But what I was going to say was it also reminds me of this experience of calling, phone banking all the time for Black Lives Matter related stuff and for coronavirus related stuff and for Bernie Sanders, where like you get so nervous when you get on the phone, because you have these little scripts and talking points about what you're going to say, but you're like, I'd like to ultimately just be able to get on the phone and just call them and just say exactly what I think. And I'm like, I feel so strongly about these issues. Why does it feel so difficult for me to just get on and say exactly what my beliefs are? Like, I'm scared that I'm going to be made to look like an idiot, or that I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm so certain of what I think. And I don't exactly know the answer to it. I think it has something to do with what I think is actually extremely simple, and I have to like sort of outfit all of my ideas and all these kind of technical terms, and like I'm calling this certain office, so I have to explain how it relates to these kind of bills, when it's like fundamentally I believe the police are racist, but I can't just call and say the police are racist, they'll always be racist, so we have to get rid of them. That's all. But
so what's your point there? Are you saying that like that it's hard to say what you believe, or that there's like this there's different kind of dressing up of what you believe into simple terms, and that's like less true to your beliefs?
I think that there's just different ways that we mediate the way we're trying to say what we think that distorts things in a way that isn't uniform across all the different metrics. Like being on some certain podcast, you get on and you have to say things in some certain way, and that leads you to maybe be more truthful or maybe be more dishonest. I don't know. And that I don't have a universal principle for what I believe makes me more honest or less honest.
So are you saying that Joey Diaz on the Joe Rogan podcast is a little bit like you calling someone about Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
And he's trying to mediate the truth of having sexually coerced 20 women through his imperfect language?
What is the natural conclusion?
Sarah, I hope you didn't say that with the potential voter when you were trying to for Bernie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, I guess I will say this: that I think people should be allowed to say things that they don't mean more often, and to be more hypocritical. I think that's I mean, I guess it just depends on the context where you are, and whether people are. I think there are contexts where I'm like, no, people should be held to their word, but often I find on social media, like, at least in our world, in our little tiny cancel world, I do think people should be allowed to like just try thoughts out and to kind of contradict themselves a lot more. I think that we should be a lot more tolerant of inconsistency. That's kind of abstract, and I'm not really taking a position that would get me in trouble one way or another, because I'm not being clear about what I mean. But I do think like
that's smart. That's a good language tactic. So
yeah, anybody who's listening to it goes, "Yep, I agree with Felipe," no matter what they believe.
Yeah, people should just like kind of try harder and just like be able to fail, but then also pick themselves back up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, the Joey Diaz thing is also complicated, because it's not even just that he said it and whether or not he should have been able to say it. It's like the thing he said he did. If he did that, that's
totally.
No, yes,
like
of course.
Like an omission of like a kind of crime.
Right.
You know?
Crime. I mean, yeah. People ask him. It's like, did you do that? And he's like, yeah, of course I did it. Like, he just did it. It's not. Yeah, he wasn't doing a bit. Like, he just did that shit.
He did that. It's so fucked. Yeah. I'll say one more sincere point about it, and then we can change the subject. I also have to pee, which I've never done during the podcast before, but I really have to.
Go pee.
that Roland Barthes says that language is assertive, but that people don't usually mean to be assertive. And so that's just kind of this fundamental, like, you say something because you are trying out an idea or speculating on something or figuring something out, but just like the way language functions is to say, like, I think this, I believe this. So, well,
I was talking about this with my dad yesterday, and it's about like sharing political ideas on the internet. And I'll sort of try to like make my way through this thought as best as I can, because I was having a hard time yesterday. But I was like reflecting on why it's like I've found it really hard to sort of share political opinions on the internet, and I think there's been kind of like sort of like a call to do it. Right.
Wait, pause. I'm gonna pee while you do this. I'm just. I'll mute myself and stop this. It'll look like Emma Orm, though. Is that okay?
It'll look like what?
Yeah. Great. Emma Orm, the picture of Emma Orm.
It doesn't look like anything. Are we gonna hear? Nothing. Are we gonna hear the sound of?
No, I'm gonna mute myself. You keep talking.
Okay. Now it's just us, Sam. I know Sarah said she would mute herself, but I believe that she's not there anymore because I don't see her anymore.
Yeah, you don't have object permanence yet, Felipe.
Exactly. As far as I'm concerned, Sarah's gone. And she can't hear this thing. Well, I'll now that Sarah's not around, this idea is going to go absolutely off the rails and become.
Yeah, dude, say what you really feel.
Yeah, she's
about sharing your thoughts on the internet.
Yeah, I'm bowling, and Sarah's usually like the gutters. Like I have the gutters up, but now the gutters are down. So I'm gonna curve this one.
And I'm the guy telling you to like take some speed before you start bowling.
You're the guy in the alley next to me that's like, check this out. If you hold it like this, you can curve it and you can make it 90 degrees. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try that.
Brother, you want some more beers? Who wants more beers? I'm getting this guy another drink. All right. He's rolling strikes all night.
You're the guy next to me that's like, try to hit the pins without having them touch the alley first. Just throw it overhand and try to get a strike that way. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, you can wear your Timbs onto the bowling alley.
Run up to the pins and punch them with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, what if you did that? What if you ran up to ran up the alley before the security could grab you? You grabbed one pin and then you just hit the other pins with that pin.
That's wild.
So what if you did that?
And you go into that. Okay, here's a crazy story that this reminds me of. Is that my father remembers bowling in Kentucky, like in the I guess this would be in the 1970s, like when he was a little kid. And he remembers going to a bowling alley in Kentucky, and you would bowl and you get like a strike and you knock down some pins. And instead of a machine going down to pick up the pins, this is how he described it. He said there was like a black arm came down and picked up the pins and like set them back up from behind, from like above the thing. And what he realized, like to his horror, was like there was like a person sitting above like each thing picking up the pins.
Well, I'll say this, no, there doesn't need to be any horror. I think that's a common thing for there to be, or at some point, like for there to be manual resetting of the pins. I mean, I guess the racial dynamic notwithstanding. Sure.
It's a reflection about race.
Sure.
In America,
Sure, but I guess I mean not to relativize, but as insofar as you're okay with wage labor, manual resetting of the pins is a thing that happens.
Maybe I'll just share an anecdote like that when Felipe goes to the bathroom. It's Sarah and I on the call.
I'll say this. What's funny about what happened is not that you went off into the gutter of saying earnestly fucked up stuff, is that you just did bits the entire time, because that's
totally that's when mask is off. No, it's because I do need you sort of guiding me through this thought. And I thought I'm not just going to say this to Sam. Plus, Sam hears me.
Sure. Well, I was listening. So.
Sam hears me riff. Sam hears me riff all day long, and it's like I'd rather just joke around with him now. Just that I've found it hard to share opinions and political opinions online, and again, like I'm gonna try my best to make this into a short thought, and I'll try it out, and maybe I'll get it wrong the first time. But basically, like, it's because I think that opinions and beliefs, like a good a good take, quote unquote, right? And if we're talking about Twitter, like a nice tweet with an interesting take can have the potential to activate you when you read something that you think, wow, I hadn't thought of that before. But that depends on how like well sort of crafted the idea is. And in that sense, like although we think of takes as having a kind of truth value or ethical value, they also have like an aesthetic value. Like a take is like a joke in that it can be powerful and new and fresh, or it can be cliche. And I think that a take that is cliche not only has like a lower aesthetic value, but also has like a lower truth value in a sense. Like if you say something cliche, it just doesn't, it washes over the reader. Cliches don't like make you feel anything. They don't activate
you. Make you mad even.
They can make you mad, but
like, when I read them, I feel like I'm like, why are you saying this? Fucking obviously, I know this. You should know this. Like,
yeah, and so there's this whole kind of mandate or call to like be sharing, and I guess the other is like, uplift other voices, right? And I was like, I could do that, but I also wonder like, do you run the risk? Because like I could have just, for instance, tweeted just Black Lives Matter as a thing I believe, right? But it's like, if I just tweet that, to me, the fact that that's like not like a particularly fresh thought, to me makes it like kind of neutral, even though
you gotta reinvent the wheel every time you
and people are like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I think a little bit it's like, well, we're in the world of like aesthetic objects like sentences, like Twitter, and so it's like
that is the platform.
And so it's like, even though it's a true statement and it's an ethical statement, the fact that it's like an aesthetically nothingy statement to me makes it feel like, I don't want to post something that doesn't feel like interesting or powerful to me, even if it's true and good. So I think that's I think that I made sort of the point to the extent that I wanted to make it. That wasn't that hard to explain.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing to go out. I think that's a fair enough point. I mean, it's like kind of speaks to the thing about the people posting the black squares, where it's like Instagram functions in a certain capacity. If you want to use it for some kind of activism, you should use it in a way that makes sense for what that platform is. So if like Twitter's platform is like giving aesthetically interesting new takes is like the currency in which it operates, then I can see why you would want to be operating in that way, even when people are saying just post Black Lives Matter. But I also just found it confusing, and we've talked about this a little bit, during the last few weeks, the amount of time that I've just like seen taken up on my social media feeds with people seeming to lose sleep over how they were going to post about it on social media. And I was just like, I'm confused why this is like preoccupying people so much. When to me it seems straightforward enough that you should just like amplify Black voices and like post that Black Lives Matter and like share information that's been helpful to you, and that the way I decide what I'm going to post on Instagram, I'm not really on Twitter, is just something that a piece of information I was looking for, that once I found it, I shared it because I thought, well, if I was looking for it, someone else probably was. So very easy.
Mm-hmm.
But you're making a more philosophical argument, but to me it was as simple as that.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the truth is that it did not feel as simple as that to me, for better or for worse. But I guess maybe that's all. Hey, what about you, Sam?
Well, what it makes me think is that I think like I too am sort of in awe at sort of the sort of anxiety that I think a lot of white people feel around how to behave in these situations. And I think I associate it with like an anxiety of people who are sort of like new to like racial justice or concepts of racial justice or talking about racial justice, where it's like the sort of first level of like coming into activism is off. I think in at least maybe in my experience around this is that like you're first quite nervous because you want to do the right thing. And then there's like a second tier or second level or a third level where then you sort of graduate from that and you realize that, it's obviously the right thing to do is actually quite a simple, obvious thing. And that that being preoccupied with whether you're doing the right thing or whether you're going to get called out for doing the wrong thing is actually sort of like the anxieties of someone who's like sort of new to the game a little bit, so to speak, and that like the thing becomes first it's simple, and then it becomes complicated, and then it becomes simple again. Does that make sense?
Theory,
yes.
Our level 1, level 2, level 3 looks like level 1.
The theory we invented, the level theory that we invented in one of our first episodes.
In one of our first episodes, yeah. What was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, but what I think is sort of the most interesting thing to me, and I was kind of texting Felipe about this the other day, is that the concerns about being a virtue signaler or like talking about good things that you do or trying to seem good is like a biblical, like ancient concern that people have always had, that I think is interesting for that reason. That like in the Bible it says your left hand shouldn't know what your right hand does, like in terms of like doing good for other people, which is weird to think that like you're supposed to be keeping it a secret from like even your own mind.
Even your own
you
hand.
Know like why you're doing something.
Keeping your hand in the dark.
Yeah.
Don't let your hand
like,
see.
I don't even what does that even mean? I have no idea, but it's in there. So.
It sounds I already hate myself for saying this. It sounds like a thing about masturbation. We don't even have to dwell on it. Forget it. We don't even have to dwell on that comment.
I think it's what it's advising you against is doing that thing that they do in that Guillermo del Toro film where
where
he
you
puts
have the eyes in the
eyes. That's what it's telling you not to do.
Mm-hmm. But I like that, and I like doing that.
It's true. You love Sarah, I think you do that at parties. That part of the night where you do that.
Some people don't like it, but I like it, and the people that do like it, they really like it. So
that guy's like, he's like, hola.
For people who are just listening and can't see, Felipe is holding his hands up in front of his eyes, saying "Hola."
Hola. Damn, that movie was. I'd like to rewatch that movie. Yeah,
movies,
and it's not good.
You don't like it?
The only good part is the part we're talking about. The rest of it's
the guy
like,
with
that
the
part's
eyeballs?
fucking cool. The guy with the eyeballs, the big feast, being down in that cave.
You don't think the anarchists in the woods was cool?
I don't remember it, and so I don't think it was cool.
Okay.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás? Just some of the lines you might hear from the guy with the hands in his eyes. But yeah, virtue signaling. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it is true that even back in the Bible, people were worried about seeming like they were like they were being showboaters.
That's exactly right.
But yeah. No, I mean, I'll sort of share how I've been feeling, which is that, and I think this is a thing that a lot of people have been feeling, but it's like I just feel really bad. Like the internet it's been making me feel really bad. And I think that one thing that is happening, and I notice it when I go outside. As soon as I go outside or I'm at a protest, I'm like, oh yes, like it's okay. Like obviously it's not okay, right? Things are bad, but the feelings that one feels on the internet need not be the feelings of the real world. And I think the problem is like you confuse, because in the internet performance and action are the exact same thing. There's no you can't do anything on the internet that isn't performance and outward facing. You start to confuse the two things. You start to confuse the performance for the action, and they become the exact same thing. So showing that you have done activism equals doing the activism, as far as social media is concerned. Or sharing images or showing that you care about this thing is equal to caring about the thing. And I think that like translates into other stuff which I can't think of right now. I had like a whole thought about this, but basically like, yeah, you just, everything that happens on the internet starts to, like with the black square thing, it was so funny. I just thought it was crazy, not how, and we all talked about this already, and this happened a minute ago, but people started posting a black square with the hashtag Black Lives Matter. I'll just explain it, whatever. And then
we should get used to doing that.
And then after people had been doing that, this new discourse was born that was like, don't post the black squares. Don't post the black squares, because it's like crowding out important information. It's crowding out the important information on the Black Lives Matter like hashtag. And what was interesting was not how widespread the black square was, which by itself was like quite like corny and like, you know, it was just like, oh, this is useless for sure. It's like 100% virtue signaling has no use at all. But what was weird was like how widespread and for how long the anti-black square discourse ran for. It was
my feed way longer than the actual black square.
Exactly.
And the people that posted them seemed to feel such a horrible guilt that they posted like 8 or 9 Instagram stories explaining why not to post it, when I was like, one will suffice, I think.
Totally. like you can just delete it and move on. Like you know, and it actually, and the anti-black square discourse began to crowd out the things that in theory needed to be on the timeline. But I think that's like a perfect example of like, to me it felt like, oh, so you think that the internet is like a kind of mirror of the world, but actually it's like distorted, and past a certain level of detail, you just see the distortion. So suddenly you think you think that when you're on the internet, you're plugging into the protests, but suddenly you're just plugged into what's happening on the internet, which is this black square thing, which has like no connection to anything at all, only what's happening on the internet. And I think that it feels that way with a lot of things, where like, even I've found that like, for instance, and I think this is quite, I mean, I don't know if you guys are party to the level of neuroses that I experience daily, and with regards to the internet specifically. I think I might be number one on the tier of
Daily,
internet
maybe.
neuroses. I think you guys definitely. What were you gonna say?
I have a panic disorder, but I don't have an internet-based one.
Internet-based one. Oh, I should have brought up. I had a panic attack the other day. It was an interesting story to tell. But anyways.
Me too. So we can both tell about it.
Well, let's see.
There's still time.
I mean, is there still time?
Felipe,
We're coming up on. What's up?
Let me ask you this though. That like, I think this is going to sound initially sort of like theoretically just like irritating, but like,
please come at me.
I'll
fuck you up, dude. I'll end you, dude.
I think going to protests can be thought of as a kind of performance, and that like oftentimes what happens at protests is it's this exactly like sort of self-consuming thing where people start like talking about and sort of like reacting to the dynamics of a protest itself rather than to the issues that like the protest is ostensibly about.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to think a little bit about that. I guess that's true. I mean, maybe it's just like a quantitative difference. I just think that on the internet, you are missing a big component, which is like face-to-face contact. And I think that makes a difference, even though it's true, like everything, there's not really a line between action and performance. Like they are sort of similar. Or
imaginary and real.
It's true. I guess maybe what I'm describing is like being on the internet has made me feel like everything that there is to be felt is like anger and sadness. And it's like, oh no, I'm seeing the internet, but that's not the world. Because as soon as I go out into the world and interact with people, I'm like, oh no, like there's still like love and like feeling good with my friends and stuff. It's not just this one thing.
Yeah, it definitely feels different to me between like the potential energy of internet life and the kinetic energy of being outside doing the protest is qualitatively different. So I agree with you. I do agree with like Sam's point that there is like a aesthetic element to protesting and a way to be neurotic about being at a protest also, and to be like, oh, I think I'm at one of these protests that actually doesn't do anything and there's no point, and I'm just like here for myself or like something like that. But my lived experience of the last few weeks has been like being on the internet and looking at shit on the internet feels bad. Going to the protests feels sometimes scary, sometimes bad, but even bad in the way that it's scary is in some sense a better feeling than bad in the neurotic way that being on the internet feels. So, and it has mostly felt positive and energizing.
I'll describe another way in which this sort of plays out, but and again, like I think I'm like a little more susceptible to this than you guys. So as I say it, I'm a little more self-conscious about it. But it's like or maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe you feel this just as much as I do. But I start to identify myself in tweets, right? Because there's tweets that are like, oh, I don't like the people that are doing X, Y, or Z. And so I see myself sometimes identified in those. Yes. And then I start to think that's me. And not only do I think they're talking about me, but I think that's who I am. I am that person. And so I start seeing myself through this, like, does that make sense? Like, I'm not like Felipe with my thoughts and feelings. I'm like the guy that does this. And even in my own head, I'm like, Felipe's the guy that does this.
Yes. I was thinking about this actually earlier when we were talking about just posting on social media in general, where I'm like, oh, I think part of the reason why I'm maybe kind of good at this is because I have such an obsessive, like, external viewpoint on myself that's like anytime I say anything that could possibly be conceived by me as annoying or embarrassing, I will spend several minutes imagining various people in my life saying or doing that thing to try to get some handle on, like, how bad I think the thing is that I said or did, how embarrassing, and I think that's sort of an obsessive thing. I think most people probably do that to some degree, but I think I have a neurotic addiction to it. And so anytime I'm posting in India, I do so visualizing other people's perception of it. I think I prevent a lot of, like, mistakes from being made just through obsessive thinking. And so I feel sort of like you, were when I see an external view of myself summarized into something pithy and, like, clever and funny, I'm like, oh shit, this is, like, really important data for me to know that from the outside someone else thinks I'm a person like that, and I'm really going to internalize what that means in a serious way.
Totally. But then I'll say this: when I go outside and I'm in the sun and I'm with my friends at a picnic, suddenly that thing disappears. I'm like, I'm indoors all day, and I'm like, I'm the guy that does this, whatever it is. I'm the guy that doesn't, like, post and stays silent or whatever. But then I'm at a picnic and I'm like,
oh no, I'm Felipe.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that feeling I had was inside of a website, and the website can't hurt me.
Yes.
I think this all, like, we should do, like, a group watching of the ContraPoints video on cringe, but this is basically, like, exactly what she talks about in that video, and, like, the concept of cringe and how, like, communities sort of why cringe, like, the concept of cringe humor is both really popular on the internet, but also is, like, sort of used as a way for communities to sort of, like, self-police themselves and control sort of behavior and broadcast into the world what sort of, like, behavioral norms should be, like, followed or avoided and stuff.
Yeah, I think there is a value to it. I guess the way I've been feeling is, like, I know for myself that it causes a lot of angst, and I'm like, oh, I think the sort of next step for me, the level 3 that I'm trying to get to, is like, feeling shitty about myself is not politics. Like, that's not me doing politics. And, like, feeling angry.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. So I think, it's like a simple thing, and it's a thing I've thought. It's not a new thought, but I do think I've been surprised, like, how I have been feeling shitty, and how I think that I'm not the only one that confuses those two things.
Yes. No, absolutely. I think that is a broad phenomenon of people feeling shitty about themselves as politics. And that's a nice way to summarize it. But it is confusing because we're being asked to both think about things on a larger societal level, of which we're only a small component, but then also make certain demands of ourselves as the only unit in that society that we actually can control. So mediating between those two things is hard to do.
I'm trying to just feel good, man.
Yeah, I'll say this is something interesting that Felipe said about how I was saying that I felt that I would have to vote for Joe Biden because the seems like more bad stuff would happen because of Trump, less bad stuff would happen because of Biden, and to put it simply and not get that much into it. And so the most ethical thing that I could do would be to vote for Joe Biden. And Felipe was like, why do you have to do the most ethical thing that you could do when none of the people in the government do the most ethical thing and none of the people who have the power or the money do the most ethical thing? You could tell me this is a misrepresentation of what you meant. So why should I have to, as like sort of the lowest person down on the bottom of the chain, be like losing sleep over having to vote for someone I don't want to vote for because he's a sexual assaulter and I'd rather write in Bernie.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's gonna feel so good to not vote for him. It's just gonna.
I know. Why am I depriving myself? Like being such a masochist about it? And I think that's an interesting point because I'd always thought, if you can break down the things you believe in, it's hard to know what you believe. But fundamentally, I believe it's important for me to try my best to be the most ethical person I can be. And then you were kind of telling me I don't have to do that. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? So I don't know. I think about that a lot.
Totally. Yeah. I'll try this out. Yeah. I think people should be allowed to be more bad. I think free Joey Diaz. No, I'm joking.
Can I eat chips for dinner?
Brother, you already eat chips for dinner. You eat like tuna dinner. And hot Cheetos that you eat with chopsticks. And that's not even a joke. That's a real thing you do.
No, I'm living my best life. It's great. I feel good.
Sam is eating tuna with hot Cheetos, and I'm eating dried oatmeal for dinner.
Felipe, but the reason I can do that stuff is that I'm not constantly looking at myself and delving into cycles of shame about my
it's
actions.
True. Sam is a Zen master.
I'm living the bliss you say you want to achieve.
Sam is a Zen master. You say to him, do you not feel unsettled? And he says no, and you know he's not hiding it from you. There's only the surface of the statue. There's nothing beneath.
Exactly.
So what we want, what Sam already has. That's what it would look like.
Yeah, like my life and principles.
No, I want to be me, but having a good ass time.
Yeah, brother, me too.
The goal is to
all
be
there
you,
is
but
happiness and
Guys,
unhappiness. You
it's
decide.
actually just all about us being ourselves and having a good ass time. You're at the rally.
Yeah.
I saw Polly at one of the protests, and then I saw him
Polly?
on Instagram surfing the next day.
Oh, the guy who ran the space where we did the original fucking Raisin Man show. Talk about a guy who's having a good time.
Talk about a guy's
totally.
That guy's having a good time.
Totally. No, he stepped back and he said, politics is not about making yourself feel bad.
No.
He's had Mahalo vibes, like skateboarding ever since.
Yeah, that guy's living a who care lifestyle. No, man.
Guys, I'm sweating so much.
I wish you guys could see the little robots that I've been playing this whole time. Just little dog robots and little running robots. Do you guys think this will ever be a Bits podcast? I'm thinking it's never going to be that.
No, that's not what I want. Because then it makes me feel like I'm keeping you from getting to be yourself.
No, hey, I could have been doing Bits this whole time. I'm expounding.
Yeah, I was surprised by your not doing so many bits this time.
You know, the truth is, leading up to this, I was like, oh, I got so many things I want to share, and I just, then I was just, to be honest, although I seemed like I was trying to get some thoughts across, I feel like I mellowed out a lot more than I've been these last 2 weeks.
I didn't know that you hadn't been mellow. I guess we haven't been we've been texting, but we haven't really been on the phone.
I've been keeping a little tally of things I wanted to say, but I don't think I said any of the things I wanted to say. No, psych. I said some of the things I wanted to say. I said some of the things I wanted to say.
I've been feeling emotionally, and I guess we're getting to the end here, so I'll just say this briefly, as if talking, I spend so much time talking, and I love to talk, and then the last couple of weeks I've just been like, there's no point to talking. So to do the podcast today, I was like, here we fucking go. Talk time to talk about stuff. And I don't know. It felt fine. I didn't have any revelations or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're out in the woods.
Yeah. So
I had a lot of fun. I think, Felipe, you should dye your hair Sarah's color, and Sarah should get a black mustache.
That would be cute.
There's an Argentine singer of this band that I like, and he's got Sarah's hair and a black mustache, and I really like that look. That look. Yeah. It's a really good look.
That would make my damn week, just looking at you two like that.
Damn, I wish we could go for longer.
What are we at?
We're at the time. My
headphones, they're so hot and so
you see us all
ears. I'm really counting down the seconds.
All right. Well, that's that.
Can we do another one? Because we were kind of behind, so maybe we can.
We're a little behind, so we got to catch up.
We can catch up, do a few more. I'm down to keep doing some more. I mean, I guess we can talk
right
about
now.
This.
record another hour right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's not a bad idea.
And then we do it in another episode.
No, I guess we can talk about this off mic. I'm just kind of.
We can do it on Wednesday. That's when I'll be back.
Oh, that's when I'll be back as well.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and I hope everyone's doing well out there. And sorry we've been gone right when the world needed us the most. We vanished.
Listen, Sarah, we don't got to apologize to nobody. We did self-care. We were out in the streets.
We hushed down our voices.
Don't nobody need an explanation from us.
Yeah. All right, then good night, everyone.
Bye.